Point of view switches to the day of the International Guilds Conference, where we start to see representatives from all over the world slowly rolling in. The first hunter we're introduced to is Leinart Nierman of the Richter Guild representing Germany. He and his assistant are trying to maneuver through a sea of reporters, and he asks, why are there so many reporters here? And his assistant replies, the South Korean hunter everyone's been talking about arrives today. And he's like, oh, him. Ah, speak of the devil, there he is. And then we see Sung Jinwoo talking to Jinho and Mr. Woo. Leinart says, how about we go introduce ourselves? There's no harm in getting acquainted with the powerful hunter. As he's approaching Sung Jinwoo, he notices something that completely stops him in his tracks. His assistant asks, have you changed your mind? He says, nah, wait, you don't see that? He's like, see what? Then Leinart slowly comes to the realization he doesn't summon his shadows from another dimension. He brings his shadows along with him. Then in Sung Jinwoo's shadow, we see a sea of eyes which are representing his soldiers. He continues, he could wage war against the entire United States with an army of that size. Jinho sees Sung Jinwoo staring off somewhere and he asks, you see somebody you know? And he says, nah, it's just some foreigner staring at me. And Jinho replies, well, since you've been all over the news, you probably got loads of fans right now. I guess they wanted your autograph. By the way, Mr. Woo, why are you here? This question clearly throws Mr. Woo off because he was probably thinking the same thing. Sheepishly, he responds, I'm here as Sung Jinwoo's bodyguard. And Jinho starts laughing. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. He whispers out his lips, I'm here as his bodyguard. And Jinho says, bodyguard for who? Sung Jinwoo says, looks like those people over there are here to welcome us. And then of course we see none other than Mr. Alan White. And he says, we've been waiting for you, Mr. Sung. And Jinwoo says, I thought you were in charge of the Federal Bureau of Hunters Asia branch, Mr. White. He says, haha, yes, until recently. Now I'm also in charge of communication with you. The rest of your party will be escorted to the hotel first, and Jinwoo tells Mr. Woo to go with Jinho. Alan continues, as for you, Mr. Sung, could you please come with us? Jinwoo's eyes begin glowing purple and he says, is this about my father? Alan begins sweating and says, no, I assure you have nothing to lose. After all, I've already made the Federal Bureau's opinion of you quite clear. Jinwoo asks, is this a confidential matter? He replies, yes, some of the information I'm about to share is top secret. Now in the car on the highway, Jinwoo says, where are we headed? And Mr. Allen says, the Federal Bureau headquarters. To be completely honest, we're in a state of emergency. A huge part of America's military strength depended on Christopher Reed, and now that he's passed away, we are in dire need of reinforcements. Things are quiet for the time being because his death hasn't been made public yet, but soon we'll have to do everything in our power to recruit a hunter who can fill this void. Am I one of your candidates? Sung Jinwoo asks, to which Mr. Allen just nods his head yes. He pulls up a projection of a secret file showing the corpse of a massive dragon. As you already know, the value of a runestone is proportional to the strength of the beast of which it was obtained. The most catastrophic event in human history and a raid everyone wants to erase from memory involved, the dragon Kamish. We're currently looking for a rightful owner of the rune that was extracted from the dragon. So, Sung Jinwoo, what do you think of our new offer? This is one of the rare times we actually get to see Sung Jinwoo shocked and stunned. He says, that photo, go back a slide. And Mr. Allen says, pardon? He says, I want to look at the previous photo. Are you talking about the photo of Kamish's corpse? Allen says, has the US been preserving Kamish's corpse? Mr. Allen replies, yes, but Jinwoo cuts him off with another follow-up question asking, where is it being kept? Let's go there first. And Mr. Allen's like, what? He said, I willingly spared time for the Bureau, so this shouldn't be too much of an ask. Mr. Allen replies, I have no clue of where the corpse is kept. I'm only allowed access to info that has been authorized by my superiors. But I'm sure they'll be happy to oblige if they hear you're making the request. You mind waiting here while I go give them a briefing? Jinwoo was like, nah, well, if I have to wait, I might as well just go with you. And at this point, you can tell Alan is tired of Sung Jinwoo shit. So Mr. Sung is here right now, the bureau chief says. What about the runestone? Did he say anything about the runestone? He said, no sir, he barely mentioned it on the ride over. Then all he really wants is to see the corpse? Then he sends Alan outside while he discusses the matter with Mr. Connor. Why do you think he wants to see Kamish's corpse? He said, your guess is good as mine, sir, but one thing's for sure. He's not here to do no sightseeing. The value of a skill is immeasurable. High-ranking hunters are willing to spend large sums of money to purchase runestones. Skills give hunters power, and their survival depends on their level of power, which means getting a chance to look at the corpse might be of greater benefit to him than obtaining a new skill. But isn't his ability limited to the beast he kills himself? Then he has this epiphany. What if he could create soldiers out of beasts that were defeated long ago by someone else? Mr. Connors is like, oh, fuck. He's planning on turning Kamish into one of his summoned beasts. At this point, they're both freaking out. He's like, what? If that's true, then we must stop him at all costs. A single individual should not be allowed to wield that much power. Mr. Connor says, but if we turn down his request, it'll be difficult to maintain a good relationship with him. He's like, that's a good point. He decides, fine, then I'll personally take him there. This might be a good opportunity for me to see what he's capable of. And now in the process of escorting Sung Jinwoo and Mr. Allen to the basement, he says, I would have liked to sit down and talk to you, but it seems like this is what you want. Whole time Sung Jinwoo was just thinking, I can't believe they built their headquarters on top of the place where Kamish was defeated. He leads the men down a long corridor and Sung Jinwoo thinks to himself, I can feel the mana in the air. If there's still this much mana left over after 8 years, I wonder how strong he'll be when I turn him into a shadow soldier. And then we finally make it to where they're keeping the corpse, and boy is that thing massive. It killed hundreds of elite hunters before it was defeated by the last 5 remaining national level hunters. We have since preserved its corpse in this exact same position. In fact, all the electricity used in this building is powered by Kamish's Essence Stone. Are you satisfied now, Mr. Sung? He asks, and Sung Jinwoo begins stepping forward towards Kamish and he tells him to step his ass back. Mr. Allen asks the director if he's sure about this, and he says, look, it's fine, he has my permission. Sung Jinwoo walks up to the glass with his right arm now glowing with mana, saying, alright, let's see if it works. He reaches out, touches the glass, and says, arise. And a swirl of forceful dark mana began filling the room, but then it quickly dissipated and he got a message from the system saying, you have failed to extract a shadow. You have 2 chances remaining. Sung Jinwoo closes his eyes, takes a deep breath, and prepares to try again. He reaches his arm out, touches the glass, and says, arise. And then suddenly, forceful mana begins swirling from inside the glass. It's almost to the point where it's like a dark, shadowy mana storm. You see the silhouette of a dragon slowly rising. The more the dragon becomes clear, the more forceful the energy in the glass. And then we slowly see Kamish rise from the shadows. Dragon's mana was so powerful it shook the foundation of the entire building. He asked Sung Jinwoo, are you the one who summoned me? The king of the dead, the monarch of shadows? Everyone was watching in complete shock. The greatest calamity the US has ever faced was just reborn. Alan says, what the hell is that thing? Kamish notices the human standing by watching and becomes enraged. He roars, I must kill humans, I must kill you all. The reinforced glass separating him from the humans begins to break. But that tempered glass was fortified using a top-ranking hunter's mana. Suddenly, Kamish releases this roar that completely shatters the glass. Almost instinctively, he begins charging up to fire a massive blast. The FBH security said, we must leave at once, sir, and he said, that's Kamish's breath, there is no running away. But before he could fire the blast, Jinwoo simply says, enough, and it subsides. He says, the essence stone embedded in your skull was removed a long time ago. You don't have to obey the rulers anymore. Alan says, is Sung Jinwoo speaking in the beast language right now? And he said, I'm not really sure what I'm looking at either. Kamish says, so this is how it feels to be subjugated to the monarch of shadows. He then humbly bows before Sung Jinwoo and says, I was but a lowly servant that once served the Dragon King, but now I bow my head to you, the new monarch. Jinwoo pats him on the nose and says, you used to serve the Dragon King? And he responds, yes, my liege. I was once a servant of the king of berserk dragons, the monarch of destruction. Jinwoo thinks to himself, I sense a fiery rage. I had no idea a shadow soldier could possess such a strong ego. This one is on a far superior level than the beasts I've encountered so far. There's no doubt about it, it was an extraordinary creature. And then we're shown the dragon wagging his tail, which threw the humans completely off. They're like, bro, is it wagging his tail? You're not gonna lie, Biru might have a little bit of competition at this point. Jinwoo thinks to himself, the king of the dead, the monarch of shadows, and the king of giants, the monarch of the beginning. Could the monarch of destruction be another one of the 9 monarchs the system showed me? Suddenly, Kamish begins fading away and he says, I must bid you farewell, my liege. Jinwoo was like, what? He says, I'm afraid our meeting happened far too late. Jinwoo was taken back by this. He thinks to himself, wait, even the powers of the Shadow Monarch are enough to overcome a time span of 8 years? He starts yelling out for the system, system, system. While continuing to fade away, Kamish says, I envy soldiers who can serve you for all eternity. There are 4 humans who have borrowed the power of the rulers, my liege. Please beware of them. Albeit brief, it was an honor to meet the new king, he says as he completely fades from existence. Kamish returned to being a corpse and the system says, you have failed to extract a shadow. The target shadow has returned to the world of nothingness. Too much time has passed since the time of the target's death, and it will be pointless to extract the shadow again. Jinwoo beckons to Alan and says, let the director know I'm sorry and that I'll do my best to cover the repair costs of this facility. And they say, alright. Sung Jinwoo walks through the double doors, they shut behind him and everyone's just kind of standing there like, what the fuck did we just see? Out of frustration, Sung Jinwoo punches a wall and nearly turns it to rubble. He was so close. Point of view switches to the hotel where Jinho and Mr. Woo are staying. Mr. Woo approaches Jinwoo and says, why didn't you answer my calls, Mr. Sung? He said, oh, my bad, I went somewhere with no reception. He says, did you meet up with Jinho? He says, what, Jinho? He says, yeah, he left after receiving a call from you. You said you were waiting for him at the bureau. And Jinwoo was like, what are you talking about? I just got back from there. He checks the bureau's visitor log and Jinho wasn't there. Mr. Wu says, that can't be right. A hunter from the Scavengers Guild came to pick him up 2 hours ago. Adam says, it's true that the Scavenger Guild and the Federal Bureau of Hunters has a close relationship, but they don't have the authority to act on our behalf. We just call in and ask the Scavenger Guild directly. Wu thinks to himself, why do I have a bad feeling about this? Adam gets a hold of Thomas Andre's assistant and she says, so you're saying we went to pick up the Ajin Guild's vice guildmaster? Confused, but then she thinks, wait, Don't tell me. Sung Jinwoo know about this as well? And Adam replies, no, he hasn't been notified yet. The people who are with Jin-ho inquired about his whereabouts while Sung Jinwoo was at the bureau. Tells him she'll look into it right away and hangs up. Immediately, Adam says, Mr. Sung, the Scavenger Guild says they'll get back to us as soon as... When he turns around, Sung Jinwoo was already gone. Point of view switches to Sung Jinwoo flying through the city. He says to himself, this is all my fault. I didn't assign a soldier to guard Jin-ho after using Shadow Exchange to save his dad. If another mishap were to happen, I wouldn't be able to forgive myself. He beckons to his shadows, come forth. Slowly see them start to climb out of his shadow. He gives them the command to find Jin-ho and they all scatter across the city. Point of view switches to Thomas Andre looking at the wreckage of what must have been a battle. Various security guards and armed men either incapacitated or dead on the floor. Thomas says, so he's gone and done it, huh? Crushing his glasses, he says, Hwang Dong-soo. Find Hwang Dong-soo before Sung Jinwoo does use any means necessary. Point of view switches to Hwang in some abandoned facility. We're shown a silhouette of Jin-ho coughing up blood from his mouth. Chapter ends with Hwang Dong-soo smiling a devilish smile and Thomas Andre saying, we must find him first. Shown Sung Jinwoo aura farming on top of a building looking for any trace of his friend Jin-ho. He scattered his shadows across the city and are using them as surveillance beacons. Has this process so fine-tuned that he can listen in on people's conversations. Did they leave the city? Jinwoo thinks to himself. Jin-ho is a D-rank hunter. Not even a horde of civilians could take him down. So if the car that was supposed to head to the bureau began driving away from the city, Jin-ho would have noticed something was off and resisted. The only clue the culprit left behind is that there's someone from the Scavenger Guild. He thinks to himself, a hunter from the Scavenger Guild. Could it be Hwang Dong-sook's younger brother, Hwang Dong-soo? Is he waiting for us to step foot in the United States to find out the truth about his brother's death? Jin-ho and I were the only survivors of that dungeon. I'm sure Hwang Dong-soo suspects us of murdering his brother. Who knew Mr. Woo's warning would actually come true? I don't regret what I did back then, but this would never have happened if I just assigned a soldier to guard Jin-ho. If something were to happen to him, Woo shakes the thought of something bad happening to Jin-ho because he's not going to let that happen. Point of view switches to Thomas Andre getting a status report from one of his assistants. He asks, no news yet? And the assistant says no. Does he value his life? Like, no. Mr. Hwang is an S-rank hunter. He must know the difference in power between him and Sung Jinwoo. The fact that he still did something reckless means he knows I'm going to step in. I've been too kind to my hunters, he thinks to himself. He calls his assistant Laura and asks her for a status update. Says, using records from the bureau, I analyzed all of Mr. Hwang's movements for the last month and found 3 instances of him deviating from his usual area of activity to an unplanned location. Thomas says, excellent, send all of our guys to that place and I'll head over there as well. Oh, and by the way, how did you manage to convince those old geezers at the bureau to cooperate? Says, I told them that there might be a clash between you and Sung Jinwoo if we don't find Hwang Dong-soo right away. And we're shown the bureau's headquarters in a frenzy trying to locate Hwang Dong-soo. An assistant tells Mr. Connors all members of the Scavenger Guild are on the move. And all 100 of them? He said, yes sir, they just canceled their scheduled raid just now. All their hunters are headed somewhere. The entire Scavenger Guild was deployed. That means Thomas Andre is the one giving orders. This is no trifling matter. What the hell is going on? The point of view switches to the abandoned warehouse where Hwang Dong-soo was holding Jin-ho captive. There's 2 other hunters assisting with his interrogation. The hunter says, are you sure this is okay? Dong-soo says, I'm not going to do anything bad to him. There's just one thing I need to know. Guildmaster warned me not to mess with Sung Jinwoo, but I was never going to start something with him. After all, there's one other person who can answer my question. We're shown a picture of Jin-ho bloodied head to toe. I said I'd let him go if he told me the truth about what happened to my brother in that dungeon that day. There's only one answer I want to hear. Sung Jinwoo killed your brother. I have no further business with Yo Jin-ho once I hear him say those words. Dong-soo attempts to wake up Jin-ho, who is now unconscious. When a few taps don't work, he crushes his chest, which forces him awake. The other hunter says, I guess he's a tank alright, he's holding up pretty well. Any average person would have died already. Dong-soo says, who would have thought a dopey looking guy like him would have the guts to hold his tongue? I applaud his bravery, but being stubborn won't get him out of this. Proceeds to smash Jin-ho's head against the brick wall behind him. Then he pulls him by his hair till they're face to face and he said, look, I don't plan on killing you. See, the guy grinning next to me, he's a pretty skilled healer. He's gonna heal you up each time you're on the brink of death. In other words, until you tell me what I want to know, you're gonna have to suffer in pain forever. What's more is this is a defunct factory that's been shut down for over 5 years now. That means no matter how loud you scream, no one will come to your rescue. How about it? You feel like talking yet? Jin-ho musters the energy to say off. Dong-soo says, what? Jin-ho smiles, raises his middle finger and says, piss off. Results in Hwang Dong-soo smashing his head against the brick wall behind him again. Easy now, Hwang, says the other hunter. I don't want to get swept up in a murder just to make a few bucks. Dong-soo says he'll be a little more careful. The hunter says, why don't we call it a day? I think you tried your best. Dong-soo says, what are you talking about? I'm just getting started, and smiles a devilish grin. Pauses for a second because he suddenly feels a presence outside. Looks around to find what looks like an orc in the doorway. An orc? Did a dungeon break occur nearby or something? The orc begins trembling and one of the hunters says, that's weird. I think he's intimidated by you, Mr. Wang. I don't have time for games, Hwang-soo says as he cocks back a fistful of mana. Dashes towards the orc and just as he's about to make contact, there's a flash and all you hear is the word, exchange. Point of view then switches to the Sung residence. Jin-ah and her mother are watching TV when her mother says, I wonder how Sung Jinwoo is doing. Who pops out of the shadows and says, oh, Queen Mother, no one will be able to survive an accident that puts His Majesty in grave danger. And suddenly the news lady says, next up, the conference hosted by the Federal Bureau of Hunters. And her mother says, look Jin-ah, your brother's on TV. Says, really? And Bureau says, my king. Suddenly he feels this weird sensation. He says, this feeling. I felt something similar to this before. King is furious. Point of view switches to a troop of hunters who are preparing to enter a gate. The leader says, there have been a lot of accidents in the dungeons lately, so stay sharp out there. Let's make sure nobody gets hurt. One of the other hunters says, whoa. He says, what's wrong? He says, but boss, I just saw your shadow move. And his boss says, yeah, what did I tell you about drinking before a raid? I didn't drink a single drop today. I swear your shadow was trembling like it was alive. Boss says, alright, that's it. Take the day off. He says, boss, I'm being serious. Point of view switches to a troop of cars driving at breakneck speed. Thomas Andre is in one of the cars and he yells at his driver to stop. And the driver's like, what? He said, I said stop the car. He thinks to himself, damn it, has it already begun? Instead of waiting for the car to stop, he kicks the door open, jumps out on the highway and begins running on foot. He tells the driver, I'm gonna get going first, follow me to the location. He darts ahead at full speed in a way no car could follow him. The guild member says, looks like we're gonna be flooded with damage claims tomorrow. He said, yep, tell me about it. I just wish he would have taken the car. Point of view switches to Hwang Dong-soo getting punched in the ribs. Two hunters that are with him are completely shocked and silent. Meanwhile, Jinho is smiling to himself because he knows what's about to go down. Punch's impact sends Dong-soo flying across the room. Point of view switches to show us that the punch came from none other than Sung Jinwoo.